Hello, Mzansi. You're listening to Farmers Inside Track, proudly brought to you by Food for Mzansi. I'm your host, Patricia Tembo, and welcome to episode 525. Today, we're looking at the ins and outs of running a successful farming enterprise. This episode is set to be both informative and practical as we welcome Loyiso Mbete, who is the founder of Group 500. Group 500 is a collaborative farming initiative working across the Eastern Cape to support small-scale farmers. Loyiso Mbete, welcome to Farmers Inside Track. We're glad to have you on this episode.
Thank you, Patricia.
So, Loyiso, you're the founder of Group 500. You have extensive experience in farming. Perhaps you could take us through your farming background, what you're currently doing within the agricultural space, for our listeners who may not have heard of you.
First and foremost, thank you for giving me the opportunity to give a brief of what we do, our stories, and so on. We are an enterprise development organization that deals with small farmers, agripreneurs. Our job is to look for opportunities for farmers and assist them in terms of funding, business development, and many more. But most importantly, I am a farmer, farming with a variety of things, from crop farming to livestock. We are an emerging organization ourselves, so we belong to the same category with the people that we are helping. We believe that working together, the spirit of working together and as a group of people, that's what drives us.
Thank you, for providing us with a little bit more about who you are and what you do. How long have you been farming?
It's been quite some time. We grew up in a farming family. My father was a farmer, more special crop production. But as I grew, I fell in love with both crop and animals. So to farm formally, we started in 2014, where we have been doing different types of farming, also assisting farmers in the Western Cape and in the Eastern Cape. So it's almost how many years? I don't know, but since 2014.
Yeah, no, that's quite a long time. It's been over a decade. You have quite the experience. For our topic today, we're going to be speaking about mixed farming and managing a mixed farming business. Of course, farmers, when they start, eventually you look to diversify, which is very important, to keep farming business sustainable. But I suppose balancing that can get a little tricky, maybe even overwhelming. So today, I really do think you'll be able to provide information and advice to our farmers listening who want to manage their farming business better. What are the main benefits of mixed farming compared to focusing on one crop or one livestock species? What are the benefits to mixed farming that you think farmers should be aware of?
Farming in general is sort of by its nature a mixed program because, first of all, these things interlink to each other. Livestock brings manure, brings that the crop can be eaten by the livestock. So I think the most important thing is, I know some farmers specifically deal with livestock, but for us, it's very important to mix it because we believe that if you plant crops, the same crops that will be eaten by the livestock, but also you can make money out of it. And also doing livestock can take some time. You need other activities that will quickly give you quick gains and cash flow. So you need to create a balance between the two. But I think most importantly, it's important to do both because they complement each other, meaning that each input serves as an output to the other. So in that way, you are then able to bring a balance to both activities.
And I suppose with farming, with different commodities, different livestock species, crop varieties, things like that, a lot of planning goes into it. one needs to really be able to plan. So how can a farmer go about planning a mixed farming enterprise well?
Definitely, the planning is big part of it, more especially if as a small farmer, you are seeking to create business out of farming. It's a typical requirement that you really can't do without. In our situation, we have created 5-step pillar for us in terms of how our business model we adopted, which we in fact developed on our own. Like we created a production plan, animal health plan. When we say animal health plan, we're speaking in terms of livestock, but it is also applicable to crop production, security plan, standard operating procedure, sales and marketing plan. But all that comes together if, for example, you know which market to service, because the market will dictate as to what you must produce, how they want it. So that becomes a guideline to your farming activities. So it's very advisable that we plan the farming activities that we do, because it will help you to know which direction you are taking.
You mentioned the 5-step pillar. Maybe if you could walk us through that 5-step pillar that helps farmers in navigating planning for an enterprise.
Okay, no, that's fine. But I think it will differ from farm to farm or enterprise to enterprise, because from our side, we designed this as a guideline and as the pillars that we think this business will be sustainable. Like everything starts from a production. But as I said, you can't be producing anything without knowing what the market wants. Otherwise, you are going to waste your money and waste your time. So I would say, in as much as our sequence is production plan, animal health plan, security plan, standard operating procedure, and sales and marketing, first thing is to look at the sales and to look at the market out there. And then you plan your production around what the market requires. Well, in all this, the health plan, everything that you do, it must be standardized, approved by the market standards out there. When you are doing animals or even crop, whatever you're going to give out there and you are going to sell, it must be according to the health and safety standards required by the market. Then the security plan is very simple, even though it's a complex situation. In terms of the livestock, we know out there the biggest problem we're having is theft. But also, we don't only speak about theft. We also considering looking at the biosecurity. As you would know by now, the biggest problem we're facing in South Africa is the issue of foot and mouth disease and other diseases. But that requires us to look at biosecurity programs, but also outside the biosecurity programs, the actual preventative measures to prevent our livestock even from human and animals and so on. Then the standard operating procedure is simply a way of driving the business in making sure that whatever we do is standardized. It's a procedural activity that is recorded for us to operate on. It comes from different research programs that we deploy that are assisting us in making sure that whatever we think we've done and it's applicable and it's doable and it's correct, then we keep it. Then obviously the sales and marketing is obvious. The same thing is whatever you produce, it must be good for the market and it must go to the market to make money because it's business.
So you mentioned that understanding the market and for farmers to plan around that by, doing market research and knowing what they're going into. And then you also mentioned the importance of a standardized plan according to the industry standards. So that makes quite a lot of sense. But how would you advise a farmer, because you work with many farmers across different commodities, how do you usually advise them in navigating the markets, especially when they're managing both crop and livestock?
Since we are an enterprise development organization, possibly some of the things that we're talking about now is an actual advice that we give the farmers. But we have created a system that we call a Jumpstart program. That Jumpstart program helps us to see the farmers individually as to how do they understand about the markets and the readiness in terms of tapping into those markets. But what is important is it's very important for farmers, if they want to grow, first and foremost, to create a working network and also to create relations that will assist them to understand the industry better, but also without neglecting the Department of Agriculture and also the institutions like ours and the other institutions that assist farmers, so that you don't operate in isolation and make mistakes that will take you down, because the farming industry is a very difficult industry with less resources. Whatever you have to make sure that it's going to work for you and learn as you go. But most importantly, as I said, it's very important to align yourselves with the people that understand the market, because they will probably have the specifications of what needs to be done. Then you can take it from there.
To look at resource utilization now, because there are a lot of components that go into farming or cultivating anything. When we're looking at resource utilizations, of course, farmers need to comply with licensing and with the law when it comes to water, land use, etc. But how do you manage resource utilization when you're working with a very diverse farming business?
It is, again, specifically depend on how you plan your things. And also what is important is to be able to, when you look at your operation, understand where you are and create a holistical planning approach in your activities. But sometimes what needs to be done, for example, differentiating between livestock and cropping, the crops are going to be your top priority because it's quicker. And then your livestock is an ongoing program also, but it differs because the crops will be quicker. So it will take you to look at how you are going to prioritize your activities based on where you are operating. I'm trying to figure out an example that I can give from our context, but it does not come out of my mind as we speak. But I think most importantly, really the situation will differ from farm to farm, but it again relies more on your planning.
And maybe looking at sustainability, and it's something that's quite important and is highlighted, especially now with climate change just exacerbating the effects that farming can have on the environment. Do you have perhaps any advice for farmers in terms of making sure their businesses is sustainable, especially with water use, soil, land, etc.?
That's a tricky question, because I just read one of your pages now, the lady in Amtata who just lost 330,000, I think, on the operations they are doing. I mean, I'm sure the person to be at that status level in terms of operation, he might have done everything right, but nature happened. But I guess that does not stop us from utilizing the resources that we have effectively. First and foremost, farming is an activity that rely on each other. As I have said, if you are producing crops, that crops can be eaten by the animals, but also can be, if it's unusable, you can use it as a manure, you can create manure fertilizer. So you just need to be able to use your resources wisely. And I must say, it's important when you are a farmer to save, because everything in the farm must be able to be input within this farm so that you are then able to sustain your farming program. There is no waste in farming. Everything is usable. The cow gives you manure. The manure, you put it back in your farm. So it's a cycle, it's a rotational cycle that must be embraced.
It makes a lot of sense. And Thanks, Loyiso. And maybe we can look at record keeping and the importance that plays in planning, as we've already spoken about navigating the market. If you could explain why it's important for farmers to keep detailed records on their different businesses and the enterprises within that farming business that they have.
I'm very proud that I have designed what we call management tracker system, from a financial management tracker to operational management tracker. Hence, that standard operating procedure becomes much more applicable in this scenario, because I know it's very difficult in a farming activity, because also remember, you are this small farm or this agripreneur that has to do the farming operations together with the management, record keeping, and so on. But what we did as Group 500, we have created a system. Sorry to just divert a little bit. I am, in fact, also hoping that this system, I can create an app on it where we can assist farmers to have a simplified record keeping of your business, starting from the administrative side of things and the operational side of things in your farming activities. More especially if you are going to do mixed farming, because you might be doing a lot of different operations and you can't keep by head everything. You need to have a system, a mini system that can assist you to keep your records, and then you are then able to refer back to them whenever you need to do anything. And also, it also assists you to be able to look at if whether you are making profit or losses, and also if your operation is sustainable, because you would know based on your record. So we do encourage, we're hoping as an enterprise development that seeks to assist SMMEs in the farming space, one day we would be able to share that broad knowledge as to how we can create management trackers in all different aspects of your business operation.
Hopefully that'll be something we'll be able to speak about soon as well on the podcast. And then looking at risk, there is always risk involved. What are some practical strategies that you can give to a farmer, especially small scale farmers that are just starting out? What risk management strategies do you have for them?
In that situation of risk management, first and foremost, the business of farming, you must never, when one of the mistakes that farmers do, on a good year, they think they have made money or they've made good revenues and think that money is theirs. To mitigate risk, you need, when you have done good or had a good yield or sold and made money, you need to save as much as possible, because farming is a very risky business. Before you know it, there's storm. Before you know it, there's theft. Before you know it, there's everything else that can take you out of business. So therefore, is to understand that you are entering into a very risky business. So you must always have reserves so that you are not out of business. Secondly, I think a farmer needs to get into this business at the back of their mind, knowing that where you are going to a risk. Therefore, from the first consciousness of your operation, don't ever forget that is risk management. Number two, don't ever forget that this is risky. It is risky, as you would know. Now we're talking about foot and mouth disease. We're talking about what? There are many things we can talk about, diseases, theft, and so on. So the main key for me is be in a situation where if the risk will come, you are able to mitigate it and go on with your operation.
Yeah, and I suppose that's also where good planning goes into it as well, and understanding the markets and the fluctuations that come with the specific market that you're working toward. And then looking at infrastructure in terms of roads and things like that. In South Africa, I suppose it's still work in progress, but in terms of the farm, what infrastructure is worth investing in when you're managing both animals and crops? What would you say is the first point or first thing farmers should look at in terms of infrastructure?
Access roads, number one. I'm saying that because it's the problem that we are facing now. In the rainy season, even this last season, we struggle to some of the new farms that we've been trying to expand to the road. But the fencing as well is the most important thing, more especially to some of our communal farmers. Very important. Those are the main infrastructure activity that one needs to look at and make sure that they are in place, because how are you going to transport your produce if there's no road? But also, how are you going to secure your produce if there's no fencing? Well, then that is just basic. And then the infrastructure for livestock, drinking pens and all those things is very important, but they are not far more important than that one for starters. But I guess when we talk in terms of infrastructure, we really there as South African and emerging farmers need a huge intervention from government to assist us. Like, for example, one of our challenges is that we need to do a lot of deforestation in our farms. So those are the budgets that are out of our reach. So that's hence we need a lot of interventions from different stakeholders to assist us in that regard so that we are then able to farm properly.
And when you speak of roads, farmers ensuring that there's roads to transport their produce, looking at gravel roads, do you consider that also being important? And maybe if a farmer is not able to afford tarring, but just to make sure that the gravel road is well constructed so that even when it rains, it doesn't become an issue getting to the farm.
In fact, I'm actually talking about gravel roads. In fact, talking about gravel road, we need, because it's going to be expensive. I remember in one of the farm I used to work with in Stellenbosch, they themselves, it took like some years to pave their access road, and they've been using gravel for a long time. So I guess basically the basic of the basic is just gravel road.
And then looking at profitability, how can a farmer ensure that, their business is still being profitable, especially when you're working with different, as we've spoken about, the mixed farming, you're working with livestock and crop. What advice do you have for farmers to ensure that they stay afloat and keep up with the demands of both?
Farming is a game of scale. First and foremost, we always encourage that a farm must be able to create sustainable livelihood. But really, farming is a game of scale. But we also look at how we encourage farmers to do high-value crops so that they can see the money. But most importantly, there's no other science in farming other than scaling up your business activity. But most importantly, again, you've got to look at your business and create mechanisms of savings so that you do not waste anything in your farming activities. As I have said also, one input serves as an output to the other. So you've got to look around your farming activities and be able to say, listen, for example, in one of the farms we're having a lot of, what is that tree that can be used for fire? So we decided one day, to create cash flow, let's also cut some of these trees and pack them nicely and sell them. Sometimes some of the farms would have, the building sand where you can harvest it. Obviously, you must do it within the regulation of environmental affairs. I'm just trying to mention some of the activities that keep the cash flow within, because most importantly, it's taking long to breed sheep or cattle. So you need to have activities that will generate you some cash to keep you going. So I think the best advice I can give in that situation.
Yes, definitely. And that's quite good advice, to just be resourceful and be innovative in finding other ways to keep the cash flowing. So you work with a lot of farmers and you yourself are a farmer. I'm sure you've seen mistakes farmers have made. So what mistakes do you see farmers make in mixed farming enterprises, businesses that can easily be avoided? Maybe if you can speak a bit about those as we wrap up.
The biggest mistake the farmers make, more especially the black farmers, they like to visit these well-manicured farms, like lifestyle farms and think it can be the same situation with them. But farming requires you to be there first and foremost. You can't outsource the activities to your workers. You have to be there. You have to be able to make walkabout in your farm and know everything that is in there. And as much as I encourage farming as an enterprise, but you must develop a passion for farming, because if you do not, you're going to get tired and you're going to get bored and you're going to get disappointed. I'm speaking from a context of black farmers, because I have lots of friends who are white farmers. Those guys, they master the art of farming, and also they live the art of farming. And the simplicity they live. If I can just make an example, one of my friends in Stellenbosch, we met maybe 15 years ago. The guy has been driving the same cars, and he told me it's been 10 years already. So it might be now by now it's 30 years having the same car. So you can see this guy, his farm operation is sustainable. By the way, they're making a turnover of 50 million per annum. So those are the real farmers. But their lifestyle and the way they do their operations, I think we can learn from them. But I'm saying some of the mistakes that we do as black farmers is to try and create a lifestyle of tenderpreneur, or a lifestyle that eats out of the same revenue that you are using to make your farming sustainable. So it's very important for farmers to keep a simple lifestyle, but also to keep observing their farming activities, look at it grow and make it happen like that.
Thank you so much to Loyiso Mbete, who is the founder of Group 500. And if you'd like to know more about this topic on how to manage a successful farming enterprise, we do have an article up on the website www.foodforumzansi.co.za, unpacking everything that we discussed in this conversation. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. From me, Patricia Tembo, our technical producer, Megan van der Vent, and the rest of #team Food Forum Zanzi, thank you for listening.